everyone. It is now 5:25, and I will call the regular work session of the Burnsville City Council to order. And members of the public are welcome to attend in person. They may also choose to watch this meeting on burnsville.gov/meetings or Comcast Channel 16 or 859. And the public can also participate through Zoom by joining us at zoom.us/join. And more information is available on our meeting webpage and in the council agenda packet. Now, this is a work session. Our work sessions are very informal, and we go directly to the items on the agenda for the work session. So I think we'll just go around the table so everybody can introduce themselves, and I'll start with our city manager.
Good evening, everyone. Greg Lindbergh, City Manager.
Kara Schultz, Council.
Jan Keeley, City Council.
Travis Bastu, Deputy Community Development Director.
Mark Ray, Public Works Director.
Mike Tracy, HR Director.
William Sanamore, Community Research.
I'm Bethany Brewer, Strategic Initiatives.
Jenny Rohde, Deputy City Manager and CFO.
Vince Workman, City Council.
Dan Gustafson, City Council.
Erica Henderson, Deputy City Clerk.
Elizabeth Couts, Mayor, and we'll go to our guests.
Oh, Laura Meyer Schmitz, citizen. Nancy Huddleston, citizen.
Okay.
Bo Johnston, consultant, engineering consultant from Black Beach.
Welcome, everybody. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the community survey, and our HR Director, Mike Tracy, is going to kick us off. Mike,
Yes.
floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm here to help kick off our 2025 community survey, which will be launching later this month. Excuse me. So again, typical practice of what we do. I'll provide a little bit of background on previous survey administration and some direction that we got from Council back in September. And then I have Will from Cobalt, our partner, who will be here to talk a little bit more about the actual survey administration and the process that we'll go through this spring. So again, a little bit of background of the community survey. It provides us with really useful information about both our residents and our businesses. It helps us understand community values and priorities. It also lets us understand perception and experiences around city services and programs. And then also gives us some benchmarking around regional and national comparatives. Historically, we've always conducted the community survey every 4 years. Those are typically done during presidential election years. We use a statistically valid survey method. And then in 2021, the city partnered with Cobalt to help us conduct these surveys. So back in September of last year, we met to get some council direction on survey administration moving forward. And so some of the direction that council provided was to continue to administer the survey every 4 years. However, asking us to pivot and switch, skipping presidential election years and moving to a non-presidential election year, which is why we did not run one in 2024, and instead we're running it in spring of 2025. We were also directed to use the same questions, the same sample size, kind of run back the same survey that we did in 2021. And so that's what our plan is for this year. Council also asked us to engage the business community to talk a little bit more about their feedback and input on the business survey. So we did meet with the Chamber of Commerce, met with President Jennifer Harmoning. She provided no real feedback in terms of changing the administration. They were very happy with the direction of the survey. We're excited about seeing the results and communicating that out, or waiting for us to communicate that out to the community, and express that they'll help us get the word out about the survey to their community or to their business community. And then finally, council also directed us to try to find some more modern technology methods to try to get higher participation rates from our survey participants. So this year, in partnership with Cobalt, we'll be doing some email and text messaging communication with those survey participants, in addition to the mailer that they receive in the mail. And then, just like last time, survey participants will have the opportunity to fill it out either on paper and mail it in, or fill it out online. And then with that, I'm going to pass it over to Will and let him introduce himself in Cobalt.
Sure, thank you. It's a
Well,
pleasure.
welcome. It's
Thank
good
you.
to see you in person.
It's nice to see you in person as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to work with the city again. So Cobalt, just as a refresher for those of you who aren't familiar, we are a national 501c3. We work with communities around the country on these types of projects. Our focus is really on the governmental and the nonprofit world. Personally, I've done a lot of work in state government, in local government, and I have way more experience, as you can tell by the color of my hair. Plus, I have 2 daughters, which also contributes to that. Methodology. So, as Mike mentioned, we'll be using a random sample to pull both populations for both the business side and for the residential side. We'll be using a commercial list available through what used to be Info USA, now they're called Data Axle. They're one of the industry leading groups that pull that data, and they review it regularly to try to make it as accurate as possible. In 2021, right after COVID, the business list was something of a hot mess because businesses were quite the hot mess. So we're hoping that this year is going to be a much better kind of experience that we have from a response perspective. The sampling that we use basically mirrors the community overall. The analogy that I often use is like a pitcher of lemonade. A pitcher of lemonade is 1 part sugar, 1 part juice, and 6 parts water. You stir it up really well, and you put it into a glass, which is your sample, and it's still 1 part sugar, 1 part juice, and 6 parts water. So that's how you end up having that kind of mirror effect. We will also be double checking the sampling to make sure that there is no bias right from the outset. Normally there isn't. You're within about 2% of the population overall. So we're pretty confident that it's going to be a high quality opportunity to engage the community. One of the things that we do whenever we do a survey is when we pull that sample out, we look at some key factors like average age or distribution by ward, and we look at what are the percentage distributions within the sample to make sure they match what's actually going on in the city. And then also, one of the things that we do is weighting if needed. I believe last year we did some weighting by age, if I recall, just to make sure that it's kind of trued up. The only place that matters is with the overall results. One of the tools that we give you that I think is the most important thing, particularly as staff start diving in, and council, when you start talking to the community, this will be an important tool too, which are the crosstabs. They make your eyes cross, that's why we call them crosstabs, but they're extremely useful. What it does, it takes every question in the survey and it's its own column, and then we have each individual demographic group as rows, kind of like those old maps that those of you can remember, kind of figuring out how far places are. What that allows you to do is really preserve the voice of every individual group in the community, even the small ones, because if you roll it up to an overall, those smaller groups, their voices tend to be lost. So those will be preserved in that methodology. We also color it so it's much easier to spot, regardless of demographic group, were the responses and the experiences and the priorities pretty consistent, or is there some differences between those groups? And when you're out in the community having those conversations, that kind of insight is very useful to know, okay, everyone's kind of the same page, or people with young children that might have a different kind of perception. So when you're talking to them in the milk aisle, you can ask a much more focused kind of question. In addition, we will be looking at past surveys, so you'll be able to see the trend apples to apples from 2021 to this year. And then you'll also have the larger context of the benchmarking at the US level, US for similarly sized communities, the Midwest similarly sized communities, and Minnesota similarly sized communities. So there'll be a lot of information that you and staff will be able to digest. So the surveys will be sent out initially, first-class mail with a postage paid envelope in there. As Mike mentioned, people will have the opportunity to respond either online using a survey ID number so that they don't respond multiple times, and also they can respond by paper if they choose. Then we do a second wave out to those who hadn't responded. In addition, we'll have an email that goes out to all of the folks that we can match up from an email perspective, again, through Data Axle. And also cell phone, we'll be using Easy Texting, which is an app, and as a nonprofit and as a non-commercial effort, we can legally send out text messages to let folks know this is going on and this is how to participate. So that will be a nice thing. And all of those things together should give you a much more significant response rate than you did back in 2021. Between waves, we give folks about 10 days. So after the 10 days, that's when the second wave goes out. Let's see, response rates. So typically with municipalities on the residential side, we see 15 to 40%. I expect it to be much more toward the 40% side this year going forward with you guys. For businesses, we'll see. The fact that we're doing this in March, April, May, which is typically a pretty good time to do surveys, I expect that we'll have a pretty good response from businesses too. As I mentioned, you'll have a summary report that kind of highlights all of the overall results and the methodology and all those things, along with the crosstab and all of the comments. We'll have the themes identified in the comments, but you'll also have the verbatim to those as well.
Perfect.
So, all right.
And
I have a question for Will.
Yeah.
Will, how many other municipalities or school districts in the state of Minnesota that you're doing work for at this time?
Probably about half a dozen.
Oh, okay. So you'll have some good data in comparison.
Well, the comparison that you'll have is an index. We won't be
Yeah.
saying that you look like Minnetonka or something along those lines. What we'll be saying is for similar sized communities, or we could do a cluster of counties. We can do a few different things to give you an apples to apples comparison, but we wouldn't say these are your results compared to the city of X or the township of Y.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mike?
Yep. So Mayor and Council, next steps. As I mentioned, we're going to begin the survey administration here at the end of the month. So letters will start going out, text messages, emails. We'll send that reminder after 10 days. And then at that point in time, we'll launch the non-statistically valid survey. So anyone who isn't included in that random sampling, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to provide their feedback and their voice. So we'll launch that around the middle of April. With a pretty heavy communication campaign and plan to get the word out for that. And then our plan would be to come back to City Council and the community by September to share those results. And then over the course of the next 4 years, we'll have a project team to help manage key action items from the survey to make sure that we're hearing the community and then we're doing something with their feedback.
You know, it's the right time to do it because of the visioning process and a comprehensive plan, so that we have that as data points as well. So, good work.
Absolutely.
Any comments, questions for Mike and Will?
I'm excited for the results.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Okay. Very good. The next item on the agenda is our drinking water quality study update. And Mark Ray is presenting this evening with our consultant from Black and Beach, Bo Johnson. Okay, Mark, floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I believe they're pulling up the slides in the back here, unless they hit the wrong button, which might have happened. As we've talked about many times, the city has completed the drinking water quality study update. So this process has actually been going on for a number of years. Back in 2022, the council directed staff to look further into the drinking water survey or concerns in the city. And so we started with doing some data collection and a survey back in 2022. That information was then provided to the council late that fall. More council directed staff to continue to look into it. And so we're coming back before you tonight to provide an update on a variety of tasks that have happened, including the summer 2024 drinking water survey results. So there are a number of items we'll be touching on here. And I can pull up the version I emailed you in the meantime.
They're getting to it. Almost there.
All right, so really what we're taking is a phased kind of multi-year master planning process. So let's start with a condition assessment that we presented to you all back in May of 2024. Obviously, tonight we're here to talk about the drinking water quality study. And then the next evolution we're moving into is really look at that long-term water supply plan and treatment plan to meet not only our legal requirements, but also consumer needs based not only on the city of Burnsville here, but also agencies we sell water to, such as the city of Savage. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, we're taking that really deliberate and phased approach to master plan process and study for a water treatment system.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Really kind of four things we want to give you an update. We've had a couple tech memos that have come out. The first tech memo, and these are all steps in that overall water quality study. The first tech memo is the follow-up survey to the 2022 survey. And then we have two additional tech memos, which are kind of those first steps in the water master plan kind of process. One is kind of looking at the treatment needs, and the other one is looking at your water quality and treatability. And then we have some random additional tasks specifically related to radium removal. So goal tonight is to provide you an update on these studies and let you know the results. So first one we're going to talk about tonight is the tech memo number 1, which was the taste and odor follow-up. Just as a reminder, there was an original survey completed in 2022, had about 860 respondents. And specifically in that survey, residents were asked if they would be willing to be contacted for follow-up surveys. So those are the folks that we primarily wanted to hit on this this follow-up survey. Just a reminder, the 2022 survey summary, overall there was a dissatisfaction with the drinking water, and there was a couple of things that were rated characteristics, including kind of a taste and odor, mineral residues or metallic tastes. Chlorine was also in there, and taste and odors and mineral residues were the lowest rated characteristics. So first thing we did, we got the results back in 2022 from that survey, and a couple of those items didn't just quite pan out with what we know about the water system. So working with city staff, we came in and we did kind of optimized treatment front to back, looked at the treatment rates, how they're treating the water, what chemicals they're adding, making sure that everything was in line. That did lead us to a couple items we'll talk about in a bit. But specifically, the high chlorine results informed that something might be wrong inside the clear well. And if you remember back in 2023, there was a project that was brought forth about some baffle wall repair inside of the clear well. The follow-up study, really what we wanted to do, the initial study provided us kind of an overall feeling as far as what the overall sentiment of the public was to the water, but it really didn't allow us to kind of do a deep dive and look specifically at specific items. So that's what the follow-up survey did. We went back and asked people very pointed questions related to chlorine or taste and odors to try to drill down and get that data there. We also mapped that geospatially. This allowed us to see if there's any hotspots within the town. Sometimes you can have complaints in a certain area that would indicate maybe an issue in a tank or maybe not enough flow in an area. We really didn't see that, so that would be indicated that a lot of the complaints are citywide. The baffle wall repair, if you remember, we have a large clear well that they use for storage on the site, and the pump station will actually pump out into the distribution system. The survey actually informed us that there might be something wrong with the chemical feed or the process. This actually prompted a inspection of the survey or of the clear well, and in it we went down and actually found that some of the baffle walls in there had been broken. basically the water had been kind of pouring in, the wave action backed off some nuts, some boards fell off. So there was an emergency, the repair to come in, and we're happy to say that the stilling well, which is that picture on the left, a large pipe allows that water to fall without that wave action, and then the repaired inset there with new walls helped out actually a lot. So that follow-up survey, we wanted to push that survey out to make sure that we got the repairs, that we got those treatment optimizations taken care of. Went back to those same folks that had previously done the survey and asked them about their new experiences. Overall, we're able to quantify which odors and tastes were the biggest concern. So the earthy, musty, and chlorine. Chlorine actually had gone down, and the metallic taste had come up. But overall, we saw a 4% the 4% improvement in water clarity reported by the residents from 2022 to 2024, and satisfaction actually improved 15% from 2022 to 2024. 39% reported slightly or significant water quality improvements over those two survey points. So positive trend on where the overall sentiment was trending. The second tech memo we looked at, this is the first step that we want to look at as far as that overall master plan. Well, actually, the first step would be a condition assessment. We talked to you folks last May, gave you an update on the condition assessment. Now we're going forward and kind of looking at the water quality of where we're at the for the treatment levels. So 4 things we want to look at. Primary drinking water standards, these are laws. EPA, MDH, things that you have to comply with. Secondary drinking water standards, these are recommended aesthetic water standards. May or may really they're not enforceable, but recommendations for keeping your iron and manganese at a low level, or your hardness, or taste and odors, those all fall into secondary water standards. And the 2 bottom ones are really considered future regulations. The EPA has an entire list of upcoming regulations, contaminants that they're looking at to try to determine if it will become a law. Once they decide that will become a law, it goes into a future regulation, and they usually give cities 5 years to comply with that future regulation, just so they don't bring a law right down on you right now. So future regulations will become primary drinking water standards or secondary drinking water standards in the future. It's just, it would be in that period. So looking at the performance of the water treatment plant, they're doing a great job meeting all the primary drinking water standards. We would say continue to keep up the good work, keep doing those. A couple focus areas that came out of looking at your water quality and what these 4 standards. First of all, the primary standard for radionuclides, specifically radium. I know that City Council has heard that term before. There's a couple wells that have elevated radium. The city is blending water in order to remove that radium or to blend that water below the primary standard. They are currently meeting the primary standard, but we have a couple wells that may not be used as much as the other wells are, just because it has elevated radium. So want to take a focus at that. Other focus areas in the secondary standards, they're doing a great job with iron and manganese removal. We would recommend that you keep on maintaining, keep on using that as a focus. Taste and odors, that is a little bit more subjective. Some folks are more susceptible to smelling those taste and odors than other people. So we would recommend kind of looking at a more robust treatment process to allow, to lower that overall odor threshold concentration down. Hardness and TDS, recommending that you would look at that from an exploratory point of view. I know that we've got other cities, Minneapolis and Bloomington, that do soften. I think there's some questions by the council staff and city staff about what exactly that would cost to implement at Burnsville. So more exploratory and seeing where that would look. The other thing, upcoming regulations, PFAS is a huge issue, especially in the Twin Cities here. I'm sure you've heard news with Woodbury and what's going on in the east. Right now, the city just completed a PFAS survey with the state, in addition to additional PFAS testing of all their wells and all of their water sources, including their water quality. Overall, good news. There's not PFAS in the wells. There was one notification that came back, very minor levels of one PFAS compound. But that compound was at 5 parts per trillion, and the regulation standard that they look at is 7,000. So what we'd have to treat below is below 7,000. Currently, it's being tested at about 5. So the next tech memo really looks at those water quality results and what your current processes are, and it's a gaps analysis. We're looking at what things do we need to treat for, what tools do we have in our toolbox in order to treat those water, and what are those items. So this is boiling down on one slide, about 40 pages of evaluation. But really just our suggestions here, recommending continue to treat for those primary standards. That's been a focus of city staff for years. They're doing a good job, continue doing that. They are currently monitoring Kramer Quarry and trying to identify the causes, frequencies, and durations of those taste and odors. That adjusts treatment in the water, so we want to continue to do that. As we circle back on radium recommendations, right now they are employing a blending strategy. Continue to look at doing that, and then we're also recommending that they investigate and implement a actual additional chemical addition to specifically remove radium. That would allow them to use all of their wells and not be hampered by radium concentrations. Again, taking a look at TDS and hardness mitigation in an exploratory fashion. We did note that there was a sedimentation process that could be implemented to improve performance of the surface water treatment plant. So looking at implementing that. And then PFAS, the testing right now does not indicate that Burnsville has a problem, but we are recommending performing a mitigation plan. So you have a document in hand that if you would have a well that would have PFAS in it, or you have a new PFAS that they're testing for come up, you have a plan to how to treat that. So that's more of a plan developed than anything, and recommending that you would implement that in kind of a future task order. One thing that we do want to take a quick step back on is some recent water quality evaluations for radium. MDH does require that we do bench scale or pilot scale testing to prove a technology out. The water quality study was finished up early summer, and we knew that that was going to be something that would need to be done. So in November, we actually did a HMO jar test, those photos there, testing out HMO is a chemical that is specifically targeting for radium removal. And I will say that the results of that test were very positive, showing that adding that chemical in can have a reduction in your overall radium. So we wanted to get that testing done before we went into kind of the next phase on sizing those systems. The next step is a future tech memo 4 or task 4. Kind of looking at 5 different things in that tech memo. First one is the radium removal, what that would cost, and how you would implement a new chemical at the facility. How does that change your treatment train? The next one is a taste and odor removal, looking at a little bit more robust taste and odor technology there. We talked about the surface water treatment plant solids loading and kind of optimization of that filtration process through addition of a sedimentation process. And then kind of the last 2 things, the question really of what does hardness, lime softening options, what are out there? Lime softening does help with radium removal, so it could be a 2-for-1. And looking at, well, what would that actually look like if it was implemented at Burnsville? Last thing is that PFAS mitigation plan and having a document that the city council can use, and more importantly, a cost to have an understanding of if that problem did arise, what would that cost be, and how would you tackle it? So next steps and our recommendations, we're going to bring the treatment process evaluation, that Tech Memo 4 is going to be coming to the April 22nd council meeting for your consideration. We still think that that water quality survey we're getting good data out of that. We would recommend that you continue to do that every 4 years. So continue to put that investment in and look at that data on how we're making improvements to the water. Continue the tight chlorine control and monitor that surface water as it relates to taste and odor episodes. That really allows you to have a tighter control on your process at the plant, hopefully minimizing those water quality taste and odors leaving the plants, as those were indicated, those are the main concerns of the survey. And then one thing that I did not mention is that there were some complaints that were associated with residue, and over 90% of the respondents indicated that they had a home water softener to remove hardness out of their water. Residue would indicate that was actually might be an issue with their water, their home water unit. So working with city staff, putting out some documentation and some information education about proper setting of those water units to try to minimize that residue in their homes. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for Bo and Mark? Any questions? So on April 22nd council meeting, what are you going to be asking us to do?
At the April 22nd meeting, the council will be asked to basically approve a professional services agreement with Black & Veatch to study what you see here. So radium removal, taste and odor, solids, hardness, lime softening, and PFAS. And really what they're going to be doing is sizing to meet our water production needs. What would the size be of these different components? And then what is the cost of that? That will be used to inform our long-term planning, really for the facility at the water treatment plant, in concert with the condition study that was done this past May for just what needs to be replaced. Because if we're investing a lot of money in our water treatment plant, we want to make sure that the infrastructure we're putting in doesn't hinder any future needs we have to do, or can we adjust something so it'll be easier to transition that system in at a later time too.
Yeah. So we'll have a cost identified with what we're going to be seeing on the 22nd.
So the cost is the professional services cost.
That's right.
That's what that work will do, will give us cost information for the various mitigation methods you see here.
So we all know that we're going out because we've been working on the surface for the water plant, for the treatment plant, water treatment plant. So we're at the legislature to get bonding for it. Will that also help with all the work that we're going to be doing and with this next Tech Memo 4?
So
I see
so
Bo
the bonding
nodding
part
his
was really
head.
done with, a lot of that was more in line with our condition assessment, and for helping fund get that stuff done. However, you're exactly correct in, as we go to implement some of that stuff, especially should we get the bonding money, Tech Memo 4 will help inform how we go forward with implementation to really maximize every dollar going into that treatment plant.
Yeah, that's some of the things I want to see. I want to knit it together so that we have a good story about what that treatment plant is going to look like and how all of these issues are going to be resolved.
So I think that phrase knitting it together is actually a really good way of describing it, because some of these systems go into different places in the treatment process.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said. You have to figure out, or we'd figure out where that fits into
Yeah.
the process. And that's exactly what Tech Memo 4 is going to help us do.
Okay. It'll also help us to understand when we go forward with the treatment of the new water treatment plant, that we can incorporate all
Exactly
of
correct.
those improvements into that.
Exactly correct.
Okay. Well, makes sense to me. So, okay, that helps.
The only thing on the list, PFAS mitigation, is almost like,
Yeah, that's a long-term thing.
yeah, it's like a
Blanket.
little insurance policy, do something, get prepared in case we are ever finding ourselves with a PFAS bloom
Yeah.
in our
Well,
wells.
it's like our friends over at Cottage Grove and also at Woodbury.
Yeah, or even Apple Valley.
Yeah,
It, you know,
yeah,
the fact that we have 5 parts per trillion and they're measuring for levels of 7,000 per trillion to be considered now a problem, we're barely even measuring.
Sort of. So one of the challenges, there's two ways, in my mind, PFAS can be concerned. One is, yes, a plume moves, or two, the threshold gets
Yeah.
lowered. And so that's the other part of this is, even if nothing changes with our water, if those regulations come down, we may still have to do something. And so that's kind of the way I think about that mitigation plan is being prepared for whatever might come. And Bo, I know you have a lot of experience with this.
well,
Yeah, and I
because you
think- I
just
think-
said, Bo, you just said that we have one well that we're not using simply because there's PFAS?
No, radium.
No, oh, radium, okay.
Radium, yeah, actually, there's 2 wells that you're not using because of radium. And the PFAS, generally, wells are looking pretty good. And I should say with PFAS is actually a group of, well, hundreds of chemicals.
Yeah.
But what they test for right now is a list somewhere in that a dozen to 20, depending on which testing method you use. So most of those chemicals were getting non-detects in Burnsville. There was only one chemical of that list that the MDH actually noted that would be of note, right? Everything else was below a detection limit. So, basically skirting by underneath the detection limit or indicating that they're not there for a lot of those chemicals.
And the important thing too, right, is technology is evolving with the ability to even test for it too.
Yeah.
So that could be another thing that as technology improves, we
Yeah.
may see other things.
Yeah, as an example, there was 2 chemicals for the longest time, PFOS and PFOA. And you looked at the combination, originally they could only test to like 70 parts per trillion. Well, now they're regulating to 4. And so it's just the testing apparatuses are getting better at getting at lower and lower concentrations. So there's probably a pretty good chance that list of 20-some chemicals was going to grow, and those levels of what's on the list could get lower.
So,
That's
Bo,
good for us, for health.
yeah. Apple Valley, because they draw their water from the Jordan Hinckley Aquifer as well. So we can measure the depth of where they are drawing that and where we go,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, we can actually, well, through the wellhead protection plan,
Yeah.
and then you can actually look at groundwater modeling on where your water's coming from.
Yeah.
Within that well. And their well that has issues, that's a localized plume. And so, there might be an old landfill or something that was upstream of it, but it's pulling that water towards that. Your wells are, maybe geographically located somewhere else. But if they stop using that well, that plume is still there. So over a course of time, we can see, well, where's your water coming from? How are we managing those risks upstream? But right now, you've got good water, so.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure, because when this mitigation plan, and because we know our neighbor uses is pulling water from the same aquifer.
Yeah.
How can we also have that mitigation plan address where the water is flowing, which plume it's flowing from, or what depth we're pulling the water from?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if Apple Valley has the information on where that one well is coming from, but it'd be interesting to pull that data and see where that is actually physically located.
Well, if we're
and-
going to have a mitigation plan, we better know that.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We've already been talking to Apple Valley as well.
Yeah. Well, because it's coming from the same aquifer.
I would say more it's in the same aquifer. I think to Bo's point, if it's a plume, it could move. So what the original source is one of the big unknowns in that.
Yeah. Okay. We just have to make sure that we have that information. Okay. All righty. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank
You
you
got a
very
big
much.
job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The next item is the ordinance amending Title VII to include portable storage container requirements. And our Deputy Community Development Director, Travis Bestedro, is presenting. Travis, the floor is yours.
Madam Mayor, council members, good evening. As the mayor said, Travis Bistedu, Deputy Community Development Director. As you're aware, council directed staff in a work session back in December to craft a proposed ordinance to manage portable storage units on residential property, which is what I am here to present. Just to provide a little bit of background and perspective, we receive about 6 addresses with these units as complaints annually per year, so it's not a huge volume of work in the code enforcement section of neighborhood services, but we do have a number of them that come in. Our current ordinance lacks clear direction on how we could manage those units. Typically, we manage them using our bulk storage, our trash dumpster ordinance. So we don't have clear language in the ordinance right now to manage those units. And it's also worth noting that a number of other jurisdictions across our area have adopted ordinances to manage these storage units. West St. Paul, South St. Paul, Apple Valley, Savage are all communities that have portable storage unit ordinances. So what we are proposing is to amend Title VII and include a new definition describing portable storage units and some direction on how those can be used on residential property going forward. So we are proposing that they are prohibited from public streets as per a recommendation from the city engineer. We would limit these on residential property for no more than 30 days, with exceptions for properties that have active building permits. So in those cases, we would allow the units to remain in place for up to 90 days.
And unless they come in and ask for an extension on the permit?
That is correct.
Yeah,
Madam Mayor, council members, if we had a complaint and we were taking enforcement action, we would take considerations or changes or requests from the property owner under consideration and grant extensions if needed, if warranted, if appropriate.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
I have
Councilmember
a house
Gustafson.
behind me that got pretty beat up here about a year or two ago. It took them 6 months to fix that house.
Yep.
There was a container in there that whole time because they had to new roofs, new windows, you name it. They had to do the entire inside. They tore everything out. It took a long time to get it done. I'm worried a 90-day thing would definitely be problematic for some of these houses. And we have a lot of old houses in this city. They're going to go through just that.
So what you're saying is that to make sure that there's some flexibility?
Yeah, there's got to be flexibility because if we want people to redo these houses for the neighborhoods. And if we restrict them to, when I first read the background, it was 90 days in a 1-year period. And it was like, you're going to delay them for a year before they can come back in and start work again? And I don't think that's.
Madam Mayor, council member, I think if we had a situation like that, that's one of those cases where we would grant an exception and say, okay, if there's a delay with your contractor or the windows aren't coming in, we would grant you an
Sometimes it's just the
administrative.
volume of work itself. They just can't get it all done
Correct.
in 90 days. And I guess what I'm asking, can we look at something that they come in and say, look, we got a 6-month project here. We're going to have containers in and out for the next 6 months, that we, instead of having them keep coming back to us. And
Madam Mayor, Councilmember, when we initially drafted this, we had considered 120 days as kind of the benchmark. We certainly could flex on that.
Yeah.
90 was is kind of a standard that other communities are using. Some communities don't specify a deadline for how long they're in place for when they have an active building permit. So we have flexibility. We can make it as long as we want.
Yeah.
I think administratively, we could just grant extensions through the code enforcement
That's what I
staff.
want. I don't want to make it a difficulty for people that are trying to rehab these homes.
Yes.
Because that could be problematic. I know you're going to get to another part of this about how that container should look. And I kind of have an issue with the nature of what these things are. You're going to get dented, rusted containers that are going to show up in yards. How do you enforce you can't have rust on a container sitting in your yard?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember, that is something that we would address as the ordinance is currently drafted. We would require the company that's providing that portable unit to exchange it with something that's at least a little more aesthetically pleasing than perhaps what might be there. But you're not wrong in that it is additional work for us to regulate those if they're rusty or in poor condition. I will say, just from experience, they tend to be in pretty good shape. They tend to be, at least, it reminds me of the propane tank that gets exchanged at the gas station. They repaint them, they refurbish them before they go back out. They tend to be pretty good, as opposed to like a bulk trash container, like a dumpster.
There's not many companies out there that are offering these in the first place. And if they're sending out rusted, hole-filled boxes, I don't know that they're going to stay in business for that long.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would imagine.
Yep.
Depends on the price of the container.
I think there's only one big player.
I don't care if it's
isn't there?
rusty if I'm throwing crap in there for half the price.
Yeah. Okay.
In terms of enforcement, we would treat this much like everything else we treat or manage in code enforcement on a complaint basis only. We wouldn't proactively seek these out, but if we receive a complaint, we would start with an education notice, followed by 2 notices to correct. And then in worst case, we would have the ability to issue an administrative citation or even a criminal citation. But in all reality, I think we would achieve voluntary compliance just through our regular notification process. So the policy questions before you, at least from our perspective or the staff perspective, is does the council wish to prohibit these units on public streets? And does the council wish to include the 90-day exemption for properties that have an open construction permit?
Yeah. That first bullet, if the Public Works Director says no, and you're going to find people on that street who are going to say, why take up parking spaces with that? So it needs to be on the property owner's property. And that's where it should be, and not on the public street.
Agreed.
Because if it is also during the winter, and it's sitting there, and we have a snowstorm, then it's hard for the plows to get around. And so prohibiting them in public street, I think, is what I would be leaning towards. On that first one, anybody have any objections to prohibit these portable storage units from public street? Anybody have any?
No, I think we should do that.
It just makes sense. Okay. What about the 90-day exemption?
I've already expressed my opinion on it.
Huh?
I've already expressed my opinion
Yes,
on it.
I know you did.
Is there a way, if it's directly related to a building permit, that it could just work in conjunction with that building permit? So once that building permit's closed out, then your storage container needs to be gone within, I don't know, like 2 weeks or something after that?
Madam Mayor,
This is a good idea.
Councilmember, that's kind of how we intend to use it. We would be, our code enforcement staff would be tracking, the building permit, the construction project, reaching out to the property owner and asking, what's the timeline? Do you need an extension? Once that building permit closes, I think something reasonable, you can have it on the premises for no more than 30 days beyond that building permit, but something reasonable is something that we can manage internally with staff.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a good question.
I like that.
Yeah. You're okay with that? Okay. So the 90-day, the flexibility also is something that is, we should consider simply because we have also in the city supply chain issues. So if we're encountering that, you know that our residents and our businesses will be encountering supply chain issues. So we should be cognizant of that. Yeah.
And the intent of this is to go after those who are using this as an extension of their
Yeah.
home, not people that are trying to
Right.
Improve their homes.
improve their home.
That's right, because that's what we want. We want people to improve their homes. We want people to, you know, they're doing it because they have pride and they want to improve their homes so it has a higher value. We all want that, so that's what we need to do.
Madam Mayor, council member, I think some of that's kind of automatically built into this for properties that are improving. You know, I talk to my neighbors and say, oh, you're putting in a new kitchen. You know, I'm gonna be pretty patient with that because I know they're improving their property as well. They're not likely to file a complaint with us, so we wouldn't even know about it unless it becomes, you know, really a nuisance for the neighbors.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Madam Mayor, since the agenda went live on Friday, we have heard from a resident suggesting that the council consider limiting where these are located on the property, only allowing them on an improved surface like a driveway or a parking pad. And I'll just say from a staff perspective, we considered that when we drafted this and recognize that these are often used in kind of disaster mitigation circumstances, and oftentimes locating them on a grassy surface is unfortunately the best place for them to facilitate that work. So we intentionally left the ordinance silent on where it's located in the yard. But we did hear that feedback from the community.
Yeah, you get into some of our older neighborhoods, they're single-car garages with a single driveway, and if you put it there, they're not gonna be able to get in their garage or in their driveway.
I used to own one of those, and I can just hear my wife now if I was in that situation.
Members of the council, do you want to put restrictions on where they place these?
As long as it's on their property.
Yeah. Anybody objecting to having it on their property? Okay.
Well, I would think each container company has their own guidelines on where they're going to place them.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, but I
Maybe.
do see the rationale that staff is presenting. If you had an issue with your house, whether it's flooded out or anything like that, and you have a single-car garage, and you need a place for your cars to be parked, sometimes you don't have gravel, but the only place you have is your front lawn. And then you're going to have to take care of your front lawn after that storage unit is removed.
Yeah, we have to consider too in the spring and fall construction projects with heavy equipment. We'll turn a yard into a four-wheel drive mud playground, so it's probably not a concern.
Just take down a tree in your backyard, and you'll.
Yeah, I think they're going to want to get it off their yard before it ruins it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Just have
So it
kids
appears to
building
me
it for you.
that a council member seems to be in agreement that we don't regulate whether it's on hard surface but it's on their property.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in a situation where there's a natural disaster or something and then we're.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. All right. Is there anything else then, Travis? Okay.
Nope, just next steps. So we'll do a little bit more community engagement over the coming weeks, and then this is currently scheduled for final adoption on April 8th.
Okay, very good. So we'll see it April 8th. And then, and the thing about this is that this is probably third time we're taking a look at this because the Code Enforcement Task Force reviewed Title VII. Erica?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is not the first time that we've seen it. This is, okay.
Great.
All right. Is there anything else? Travis? Greg?
Not for me.
All right. Things are clear? Okay, we're moving on. Thank you so much. We're at Roundtable, and the only thing on Roundtable is that, Erica, you have a need for us to schedule a special work session for commission interviews.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so commission interviews will open on April 1st. And in previous years, the special work session was held usually at the end of May. So staff is recommending a potential date for May 27th for this year's interview.
And you already reviewed all of our calendars?
Yes, and it appears that everybody is available.
What was the
that
date?
May 27th.
Okay. Your
Pretty sure I was
calendars
getting my
look
hair
good?
done that day.
Council members?
My council calendar is not the same as my work in person now.
Neither's
By a
mine.
long shot.
Oh,
My council calendar looks like I have very little going on.
okay, so you're.
Quite the contrary.
So it's
Check
the,
your-
it's
check
the
your
day
work
after Memorial
calendar.
Day.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Huh?
It's the day after Memorial Day, so I'm just
It
letting you
is.
know.
It usually is after Memorial Day.
It's the last
What's the date?
Tuesday in May.
27th, May 27th,
May 26th.
What time?
Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we usually try,
About
it's all about
I keep doing
Dan G.
Yeah, I do too.
Dan K.
Okay, yeah. Dan
G has no problem
Yeah, I
anytime of
went,
the
I
day.
went Dan G, but I,
Residents that want to meet with.
It's a meeting day.
so Dan, okay,
Yeah, good.
it's, okay,
Everybody
that's
okay?
good. So what time?
Great.
4:30, 5 o'clock?
Yeah, 5, I mean, get started 5, and hopefully we can get through them all.
Yep.
If we get
Okay.
a big, huge list of people wanting to get involved.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
We got 2 openings on planning this year, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we'll probably be pretty busy, I bet.
Yep, and 2 EDC.
So,
Yep.
2 EDC, 2
2
planning.
planning, 3 PNRC plus 2 youth for the PNRC.
That are not coming back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
okay. All right, we have a date.
Okay, great. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Sure. Okay, next, reports. Vince,
I got nothing.
Danji,
We got our Experience Burnsville meeting this Thursday, our board meeting.
okay,
Metro cities, we're canceling the March meeting, but April, we have our big board meeting in Roseville.
Okay.
Everybody will be getting invitations for that.
yeah, yeah, we already saw the
Yep.
invitations.
That's it.
Okay. Karen?
Nope, my big one I was gone for and had my second.
Okay. Dan?
Just recap a couple of events. We had our, thank you for coming, Madam Mayor, and speaking. We had our Mobility Matters event a couple weeks ago. And I think it was the snowstorm hit the night before and the day up. So we had about half our attendees not get out of their driveways or get stuck
that
at home
was-
taking care of
that-
kids because school closed.
No, and they didn't even plow their parking lot.
Yes, and the Wyndham's contractor should be
Get out of his
reviewed.
driveway.
But I-35 Solutions, I didn't make it because I had a delayed flight and got back after 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I got up when the meeting started. But the agenda showed Mark Ray was presenting his good work on our new supported projects and map that we put on our website and publish for our lobbyists to use with our legislate at the legislature. And then it showed Met Transit. Adam Harrington presented the Orange Line and Network Now, and I'm not sure what that Network Now is, but I'm curious to get my hands on the presentation to hear about how the Orange Line has grown. 3 of us went to the National League of Cities, Washington D.C. Congress of Cities. It was an excellent visit. Mainly not focused on learning sessions, but more focused on visiting with our Congress and senators, Congress folks. We had a great meeting with Representative Craig, and she was very interactive and animated, and we had enjoyed a few good jokes on what's going on in DC right now. But and then MBTA, we are just deep into the weeds of discussing strategies. One of the things we've been working on is planning on going direct with the FTA for funding instead of relying on funds coming through the MPO. Considering what's going on in DC, I don't know if timing's so good about that. We're going to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know that it'll make any difference.
I don't know if it's going to fly
if the
anywhere.
funds get reduced, whether we're going direct or through the MPO, we still control our destiny better if we go direct. So I think we're going to continue to pursue that. But that's funny. Yeah, everything's being cut. I have a monthly call with the transportation chair, Deb Barber, who lives in Shakopee. And we had a good discussion a couple mornings ago, yesterday morning. And they're, of course, very concerned. She's on the Met Council, and they're expecting some pretty significant reduction in federal funds coming through for projects like Blue Line Extension. So that may not, that $3.2 billion light rail line might get derailed for a long time or permanently, we'll see. But on the MBTA board, we're also talking about a great consternation, the debate over our allocation of the 0.75 cent transportation sales tax that was enacted back in 2023. The allocation we're getting we're not happy with. It's based on a very old model of ridership. And so it's been a year and a half, and we still are having discussions. And our STA membership is made up of MBTA, which is the second largest transit provider in the state, next to Met Transit. And Met Transit's the 800-pound gorilla. Everybody's small compared to them.
Southwest is,
Southwest is about a third the size of MBTA.
yeah, at one time, they were really in the 90s moving.
Like growing and getting bigger.
Growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MBTA grew over the years, as you know, with acquisition of Prior Lake and
And Shakopee.
But we need to welcome Lakeville into our family, so I've been working on that for a few years.
We've been working on that from the very beginning.
Yeah, we're making some headway.
I remember getting them in the taxing district. That was fun.
Yeah, when you have a transit park and ride and it stays closed during the pandemic until just about a year ago, and we kept ours open and kept obviously adjusted.
Open for the whole time.
When obviously there was a 90% drop off in ridership right away, but within a few
we were
months,
still functioning.
it grew back, and for everybody who needed to get to their work, we still had buses running so they could get them there in the morning and bring them back at night. They haven't had any buses running for like 3.5 years before they reopened that.
Well,
maybe they should have taken MBTA instead of Metro Transit.
Guess who provides their transit service?
Yeah, I'm trying not to be so direct.
Yeah, I'll tell you, they jumped right over us with that Metro Transit.
So they also, Lakeville, we're getting.
It's okay to throw them under the bus.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean,
Dan Walters would tell you that's a sensible statement.
He does it when it has to do with MBTA, but here it is.
Yeah. So MBTA would be providing Lakeville with suburb-to-suburb connectivity, which they're not getting any of. They probably never will. And we're getting pinged left and right by citizens of Lakeville asking for microtransit. And I said, if you could talk to your elected officials and you come into the MBTA world, we'll be able to provide that, but you'll never see it if you stay where you're at. So advocate your elected officials change. So
you're not going to a la carte service to them, are you?
No.
Oh, please.
No, they have to be.
They have to be part of the system.
They have to change their contract.
They have to be part of the system.
Exactly, and so they would pay into our taxing. So anyway, it's been an interesting debate. The sales tax, if we used population allocation, MBTA would receive about 28 million a year, 26 to 28 million a year. We're currently
That's
getting,
not chump change.
we're currently getting 10.2 million a year, based on the old model. So there's a lot of capital expenses coming down the pike, as I think I've mentioned before. And so a lot of things are at play. Of course, everyone probably read the news that the governor's budget removed 32 million a year out of Met Transit's allocation from the general fund because of the transit sales tax. The governor's saying, okay, we don't need to support you through the general fund, you can live off of that. And then, of course, with cutting from the feds. So,
Yeah, a tsunami.
some fun days ahead. That's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, our meeting with Savage is not, we meet quarterly, so I reported on that. And I didn't go to our MLC meeting because I was at your meeting, Dan, the mobility
Thank you.
transit, so.
You made it through all that snow and sleet,
Yes,
just like the
so,
post office.
yeah. And our Burnsville Community Foundation meeting was canceled for lack of items, because there are some things that are still being under discussion that they need to settle before we can have a meeting. Other than that, that's all I have.
Friend of mine.
Greg, anything else from staff? Okay. Erica, you have anything else?
Do not.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we stand adjourned by acclamation. Thank you, everybody.